Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to this episode of PDX Black Rose. Boy, I'll tell you, today is going to be an interesting interview that we have going on today, and it's all about money. So all of y'all who are interested and want to hear about a conversation about money, today is the day about money. And ain't nothing funny about money. You're living in America, the capitalism, all of that kind of good stuff. But anyway, we're talking about banks and money today. And for those of you who don't have banks, well, that's okay. And today, I got all my entourage with me. I got Alex here. I got Jarrell here. And Jarrell, who we got as a guest? I understand we got somebody in here today.
Yeah, we got someone special today. We got Aben Hill.
Aben, Mr. Hill is here today. Oh man, I'm so glad I'm gonna sit in on this interview here, boy.
Live in
it, Aben color.
Live in the flesh.
All right.
And definitely in the color.
Well, tell me about him, man. I mean, what? Why is he here today? I mean, what does he bring? Who is this Aben character?
Aben Hill currently serves as the Chief Lending Officer for Rivermark Community Credit Union in Beaverton. He is responsible for all lending and operation activities for mortgage, consumer, and commercial real estate.
Yeah.
He has been in the financial service industry for over 20 years, holding various mid to senior level positions for several financial institutions. Aben held other leadership positions from various nonprofit organizations focused on education, economic, and workforce development, including the United Negro College Fund, Blind Babies Foundation in San Francisco Bay Area, the Enterprise for Education and Economic Development Oregon, and others.
Yeah, welcome out.
Well, man, thank you. Wow.
Welcome to the house, my brother.
I got chills just listening to that.
Man, that was a whole lot of stuff.
I mean, it's everything you did.
How about that? Is it real? I mean,
oh, it's real.
Does he sign the front of the checks or the back of the checks?
It's real.
Who is it?
I got the scars to prove it.
What, somebody hit you in the head with a money bag?
Them briefcases.
No comment. Yeah. Something like that.
So tell me, Aben, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you. Definitely honored to be here. And I think a little bit about myself. You know, I'm a proud husband of 20 years. I have a beautiful daughter. She's 13 going on 23.
Oh Lord, I know that's some craziness.
So really blessed,
yes, sir,
to have family, because family is really important to me, and I'm sure to everyone else as well. And it's really the other reason why I'm here, obviously, is because of you, my brother.
Well, thank you very much, Aben.
We've connected, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, man.
And we've been continue to make strides and we have aligned thoughts around being purposeful thinkers and doers, which is really important.
Hey, man, I appreciate that. I'll tell you, because, we need soldiers in this industry, man, and people pushing this note, because this note is a pretty complicated one. So let's dive into it, man.
Absolutely.
Let's tell them, hey, man, I'm going to let Alex, perhaps participate on some of this, because Alex also works for the Soul District, and Alex is also a former banker, the way I understand it. Aben, so you got a couple bankers sitting in there. Alex, what does it feel like to have another banker sitting in there? You looking back on your banking days?
Well, I'm super excited to have Aben here, and you're a banker for life, so I won't say former banker, but I'm super excited to have Aben here because, this time of year, we just finished Christmas spending and we starting to talk about taxes. So, money's always more on our mind this time of year. And then with it,
money on the mind.
With it being Black History Month, we want to talk about black money.
Yeah.
And black business ownership. So I think we got the right guy here today to kind of walk us through some of those things. And I'm going to be asking, a lot of my questions are going to be geared more towards Black business banking. I know there's probably a million other topics we could talk about when it comes to banking, but we want to try to see if we get some questions answered and get some info for our audience out there. So,
well, let's shake it down from the top then, man. I mean, because let's take it in current events. I mean, when we're thinking about the current state of banking and people in the marketplace today, and I don't know about anybody else. I mean, Alex nailed it on the head. I mean, when you think about it, we coming out of Christmas and all this, and the pandemic, and not making money, and then all of a sudden you pick up know, the current topics on the news feeds, man, and everybody talking about recession, you know. So people have been talking about recession coming. How do people prepare themselves for this conversation, Aben, or the economic downturns?
Well, I think that's a really good question, because I think that's a question that's always hard to answer, because the recession and economic impacts or financial impacts hit people differently based on their individual financial situation, based on their knowledge base and understanding of money, right? Because I think it really boils down to what's your viewpoint on money? What is it like? And it's different based on what you look like and your background and how you grew up, on how you view money and how you behave with money. You know, and I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I've seen and experienced in the differences between, you know, trying to close the wealth gap, you know, between folks of color and the other folks on the other aisle, is we don't really talk about money. Money, when we do talk about money, it's kind of taboo. It's more sometimes on a negative connotation because of the negative impacts of how we viewed or how we behave with money. Because when you talk about money in a lot of black communities and black households, it's about, we have bills that get paid, they're maybe past due or what have you, or we overspend over the weekend, you know, hanging out or whatever, and then, or there was some challenges, right, with you lost your job and now that causes additional impacts, right? But if having a better opportunity to think about the fundamentals of how to manage money appropriately, learning that early on is huge, right?
Yeah, man.
How to be a saver, right? So, you know, if you get $10, do you put away $3 of that for a rainy day and use the other $7 to buy milk, groceries, whatever, right? So starting at an early age, when you get money for Christmas or getting money for your birthday, do we go out and go buy, you know, a Milky Way bar, or do we save it because we want to buy something, hold that for another day when we need to buy something that we really need, right?
Man, who saved money when you was a kid, the hood, when you was hungry, you know? Everybody, I got a nickel, I got a dime, you know? It's like, let's go to the store, you know? It's like,
I think part of it is also based on our environment, right? Because what we see and hear, you know, either from our parents or folks in our community or friends, you know, what do we see? So when you see, you be you, right? So if you see individuals spending money recklessly and buying gold chains or buying fancy cars or buying things that are more temporary or more intrinsic in value versus things that are of significant value, of like, say, having money in a bank account, right? So I think you can see that, you know, pretty relevantly when you look at, you know, some of the athletes.
Yeah.
Right?
Too quick, too soon already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just read a recent article about Ocho Cinco.
Oh, I love that one. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I love that one.
He specifically talked about why would I spend my money on a gold chain or, you know, all these cars and all these houses, not knowing what my future is going to be, right? Because, and you think about it from a professional football athlete, their average time in the NFL is 3.5 years.
3.5.
3.5, as you well know, right?
Yeah, man.
And then, but you need to have 4 years, right?
To get the pension.
So if the average 3.5 years, right? But the pension is 4 years.
Yeah. Did you have to get to the lottery, right? At the
end? I think the other challenge that we have is, are we surrounding ourselves around with the right people?
Yeah.
Right. So I know we're getting off a little bit of tangent, but I think this is important when you think about, you know, this is being around the right people that provide you the right information and the right counsel.
Yeah.
So something that's really important to me is I would ask question is, do you have your own personal board of directors?
Yeah.
Right? And what I mean by that is having a select group of individuals who can provide value and support for you when you need it the most, right? And to make sure that personal board of directors is pretty diversified, right? So you may have an individual that that you count on for, personal relationship stuff, or someone that's really, has a subject matter expertise in the financial side, or you have someone that, that you trust and you confide in around professional development and growth within, in your workplace and stuff like that. So having a diversification of individuals that you can count on when you need them the most, right? Who, one, could provide you the information timely, will be upfront with you, and give you what I call cough medicine, which is it may not taste good, but it's good for you. And that type of feedback is really important.
That was castor oil in my time.
There you go. It probably was castor oil. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and that, I guess that comes back to the literacy aspect of it. I think I read somewhere that over 40% of U.S. adults are financially illiterate. And so as I was listening to you talk, I got to thinking about, growing up in the projects, being in poverty. And then you think about the guys over the years who, when you looked at them as young people, what made them decide to hold their money when you was out spending it on bubble gum and the ice cream truck? When they come around there, every dime you can get, a nickel, give you, Mom, give me $10 or 10 cents because the truck outside. And but did you grow up like that? Was you was born with the idea of having banking in your blood, or what was it?
Actually, not at all. I didn't even think about being a banker. To be honest with you, it's just something that I fell into, and it just kept going from there.
It stuck to you.
It stuck to me.
That's a famous thing amongst bankers where they always go. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a banker. It's an accidental career.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's a blessing in disguise, because
it must be.
Yeah. And I say that because if we're being totally honest, if I wasn't in banking, I wouldn't know what the hell to do. Financially. Be honest with you, I'm actually not only as a banker, as a profession, but also friends and family come to me for advice because I am a banker.
Wow.
So I can provide insight. So it's actually a blessing in disguise. Obviously now, being in the financial services industry over 25 years, I can look back now and say, wow, that was a good choice. But if I go back 25 years, I wouldn't have had that same level of insight, or to be able to say, hey, this is the direction I should be going on, because this way I can able to provide impact.
I could definitely echo that statement. My first time in banking was 2009, right after that big recession, and I was just graduating college. I was 22. I barely knew what a credit card was, or I always had that. I had that stigma about credit cards. Like, you stay away from credit cards, That's how I was raised. But then when you start getting into it and you start understanding and learning why credit's important and credit cards are important, if you use them properly and things like that. And I think for me it was a blessing because I learned all my financial literacy from working at a bank. Yeah. But the unfortunate thing is we can't all work at the bank. So,
True.
How do we?
It's funny that you mentioned around credit cards, right? I just have a story that, if you don't mind me sharing real quick, I call it the $1,000 pizza, right? I remember when I was in college, many moons ago. I had $10 in my pocket where I could have paid for a pizza, but instead of using the $10 in my pocket, I used a credit card to pay for the pizza, so I could keep the $10 in my pocket. And then over time, I just kept using the credit card, spending, but never really paid off that $10 because there's interest that accrues on that $10, right? So by the time, when I took a step back, instead of paying the $10 for the pizza, it ended up being close to $1,000 because of the additional interest accrual and then adding additional compound expenses on top of that credit card, when I could just be about being more disciplined around use the cash, because when you're using cash, it's a different mindset, right? Because it's a visual. It's like 3 points of visualization. It's like, okay, I see this bottle of soda or juice, right? I want it, right? So okay, then you find out this costs what, $5, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, so now, point one, I gotta think about, do I have the $5 that's that I could spend, right? So that's stop sign number one, right? Then this next stop sign is now I go reach in my pocket. I look at my wallet. How much cash do I have? Right. So now I got it. That's another this stop sign or decision point, right? Before I even make decision to pull the money out to buy, right? So those are things that we need to just try to be mindful of, just be more, I guess, purposely intentional about how do we view money and how we spend it. Is it a need or a want?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, and Aben, so just so that I'm clear, I mean, in a sense, do you have a perception that people of color or you know, on a majority of, you know, say black people or black small businesses, do we have different spending habits and behaviors that are opposite of mainstream? And if so, man, what do you think some of the contributing factors are to that kind of a situation with us? Because, I mean, I never grew up learning from my parents about money, right? It was something I had to learn the hard way, you know.
Don't we all?
Yeah, getting those credit cards when we young, and because I'm excited about finally having something because I never had anything, you know. Well, now I'm gonna spend these credit cards, but then behind the scenes on that, there has to be a behavior that's consistent with respecting money and being able to develop a habit of utilizing money in a healthy way. There has to be a behavior. Is there some behaviors that we are seeing and experiencing today that are directly related to, say, why we, you know, our culture, how we were raised up, those kinds of things? Do you see a pattern of that's different?
Yeah, I guess the biggest distinction is around financial literacy, right? Of understanding exactly what financial literacy is, education, financial wellness, or education, however you want to call it these days. It's really about understanding it. So it's cyclical, right? It's almost like a generational curse. So if your grandparents didn't really have an understanding of financials, then they weren't teaching your parents, right? And there's a good chance that your parents didn't teach you,
Yeah.
right? And then so on and so on, unless someone breaks that cycle,
Right.
So unless someone stops and say, hey, enough is enough. I need to figure out how to, because I can't keep living in this cycle of poverty or whether it be financial poverty or mental poverty of not having that access to the information that I need to be successful.
Wow.
And some of that is based on the infrastructure, right? It's done that way. So what we need to do is we need to challenge ourselves to do better. We need to challenge ourselves to stop talking about it and taking action to learn. Because now with the breadth of technology, we can find out just about anything on the internet, right? So it's really about the self-determination and self-discipline. If you want to know something, you want to do better, then the opportunity is there. It's just about making the right choice.
Do you think financial literacy is an important thing for us to begin to sort of teach our community, work with our community on?
Absolutely. Because, and I give you two specific examples and the value of financial literacy and understanding the different ways to help support you move forward. One is when you have young folks who are wanting to go to college, right? And if you don't have a clear understanding of how that works, and they feel like, oh, because my parents struggle, they're not going to have money for me to go to college, right? But some of the financial literacy is understanding that you need to fill out the FAFSA form, right? The financial aid form, to figure out exactly how much money that your parents have versus how much money you can get, through grants or Pell loans or Pell grants or Plus loans to be able to support your opportunity to go to college. There's a good portion of students who could be really successful in college that don't even get a chance to go to college because they don't think it's achievable.
Yeah.
Because they don't know about the resources. So information, or the void of information of understanding what you need to do and what resources are out there for you to go to college is key, right? So that's one, right? The other one would be home ownership, right? So it goes back to, again, the void or vacuum of information and understanding of how to, what is needed to buy a home, right? So one of the first steps is having a good understanding of what credit is, right? And then knowing that your credit report is really like your report card on how you manage money. Okay, so and then that's an indicator for lenders. Would you be a good credit risk, right? Then the other piece of that is we talked about earlier about saving money, right? So knowing how much money you need to be able to save to buy a home, right? And what size home would be the right size home for you to be able to be successful to purchase the home, but more importantly, to stay in that home.
Yeah.
Because sometimes folks it's like, oh, I like this house. It's $300,000 or it's $800,000 because I like the way it looks and stuff like that. But is that something that you can afford?
Yeah,
right.
Taking up 60% of your income.
Taking up 60% of your income or more, right? So you may be able to get into the home, but then you don't realize, now your light bill is $225 a month when you were in your apartment. It was only $120, right?
So I guess the question is, do black folks spend money different than white folks?
I would say yes. We spend money
Or have
differently.
spending habits different than
They're
white
different because I think that how they view it, like we talked about earlier, is how they view money, and I think a lot of it is based on either about information. So as much information you have, it empowers you, right?
Much information you have about money?
About money, about every aspect of life. The more information or knowledge that you have, knowledge is power. It empowers you to be able to make really good decisions. It doesn't say it's not a guarantee, but at least it gives you the opportunity to have a clear discernment on what decisions you need to make, and then it also helps you to know if you don't have the information, where do you go to get it.
Gotcha.
But I think just for the sake of Black History Month, I think sometimes having money is the best education you can get for managing money, and just with the history in this country, a lot of that money that white folks might have versus black folks is transference of wealth.
Yep.
And how that's happened over how many hundreds of years versus to black people are just now coming into money.
Yeah.
Right. So how much of that wealth has been transferred, and what opportunities do black people have to learn about money if they've never had money? So I think there's some growing pains in that as well.
Yeah, you make a great point, Alex.
Yeah, he does.
And I think specifically one of the quickest way to wealth building is through home ownership, right?
Absolutely.
So, and because that's an asset that can be passed on from generation to generation, right? So there's two things. So home ownership, and then also life insurance. Right, because
got both of those.
Yeah, so those are two things. So if your grandparents had a home, right, and they had life insurance, there's a good chance that the house could be left to the grandkids,
Right.
or kids or what have you, right? So now they're starting off on a better foot because now they have an asset. Or if your grandparents or parents had life insurance and they passed away and they had life insurance, then now they have money to pay for the funeral, and then it may be additional, funds to help keep them moving.
And then like some of the instruments to be able to transfer that wealth,
Yeah.
So I think it is a key part of that education.
Yeah.
But hold on, before you move on from that one, Alex, I just got to thinking about, how we grow up and what we're educated about and why. And it's the difference between capitalism versus socialism, right? We tend to have these conversations, right, about things, and most of the time, we as amongst our own community, we're always talking about how we're being treated, right? And so, or the conditions in which we live in, or how do we change our predicaments or whatever. So most of that conversation that we're imparting is mostly teaching our young black men or women to avoid the police or be careful these types of conditions in our community. But it's so funny because that almost resorts us to or reduces us to this constant conversation about socialism or about humanitarianism, how we're getting treated. But we exist in a capitalist society. And it's so amazing is that we don't talk about capitalism. We talk about we got to get out here and get ours, right? But we don't talk about capitalism in the sense of structure as to what we're participating with and how to survive in it. So I just thought that this conversation as it's been going, that was just a part of what my thinking thought was, how I was looking at this is that we're constantly talking about how our conditions are, but we don't talk about how to improve them within the system in which we exist in, which is capitalism. So we don't know how the expression go back in the hood was ain't a damn thing funny in the land of milk and honey, but money, But yet we out there trying to get ours. We need to go out there and get it, but we don't understand how to structure it. We don't understand how to participate with it, how to manage it, how to even, have it to last over a long period of time.
And that's where I definitely see your point. And that's where I think where the knowledge is power piece comes in and educating ourselves, right? So when I think you mentioned something as relates to how things happen to black folks, right? So part of how we're being treated, and just my personal opinion, is also what we allow, right? So things, some things are out of control, but they're out of our control. But there's other things that are in our control, right? And I don't want to, necessarily get on a soapbox, but there's. I really want us to make sure that when we're going down this road and we're talking about these things and all things that are going on, around us in our communities, whether it be locally or nationally or even globally, is why aren't we focusing on the things that we can control, right? We can control a couple things that we can control how we think, we can control how we behave, right? We can control who we surround ourselves with. So those are things that we can control. Right. So, as I mentioned, the people we surround ourselves with, are we surrounding ourselves around with the people that can help us be successful, or people are having a similar mindset to help support us and doing the things that we need to do. Right.
Well,
one of the things in particular it would be is the things that are in control. We have the power to vote. Right. And all the things that are happening is like, oh well, voting. People say, "Oh, why should I vote?"
They don't hear us anyway. They don't listen to us. That's some old negative.
They do. If you not only just vote, but the people that you voted in the office, you need to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, if like the George Floyd, the act for George Floyd, to help with policing and stuff like that, right? So, if your constituent, whether it be your senator or House representative or what have you, that's in your district, and you know that this is important not only for yourself but also for the future of your family, why aren't you calling them, right? So, and I would
learn behavior.
Yeah, I would say I talked to my wife the other day. We were talking about this. The George Floyd Police Reform Act, Policing Act, is we need to do a 35-day call of action, right? We need to call our representatives 35 straight days until they act, until they actually
do something
and pass it through. So if you can imagine, right, if every single black person or a person of color made a call every single day for 35 straight days to their representative, House representative, or a senator, do you think they would act?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right?
Feel the heat is on.
The heat is on, right?
Yeah.
Because remember, they're only in office because of our vote.
Yeah.
So if they feel that's in jeopardy, right? Because they're not acting on the behalf of their voter constituents, that's a problem, right? So they're going to have to do it if they want to stay in office. And so there's a higher level of accountability, a higher level of order of thinking that we must have versus just looking at it from a perspective, oh, I went in, I filled out a couple dots on the ballot and sent it in, and that's it. It's more than just that. It's just, what do you do after you vote? What are you doing to continue to make sure that the folks that you've put in the office are actually doing what they said they're going to do?
Well, you know how they think, and I'm gonna throw this over to you, Alex, in a minute. But you know how, at least for black people where I come from, they think, well, man, them old politicians ain't gonna do nothing, and it don't matter. I'm black, so it don't matter. I walk into the bank, I ain't gonna get no loan because I'm black. You can dress up an alcoholic, you can pick him up off the street and wash him up and put a suit on him and sit him in the bank. And I got a PhD, and he'll get a loan before. All these kinds of things that have been said over the years, how people be thinking. So, can you describe your approach to ensuring equal access to funding and lending opportunities for black business owners and black folks in the neighborhood?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like I said, I don't want to seem like a broken record, but it's all about access to information first, right? Because you need to know exactly what is it that you need, and where are the resources, and what do I need to do individually to make sure that I'm ready to get access to credit, right? So it starts with understanding as a business owner. Especially if a startup, do I have a business plan? What does that look like, right? So to financially, what does that look like as far as putting together projection? Do you have a product or service that you're trying to offer? What does that look like, right? Then you also, and taking a couple steps back, is a lot of black businesses, the challenges, they're hindered because they're using their personal credit to help start their small business, because it's hard to get access to capital for a business, especially if it's a startup, right? And some of the staggering statistics are for black businesses, they usually fail within 18 months.
Yeah, well, that's almost a national figure also, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, when Senator Ron Wyden was here a couple of weeks ago, one of the things he said is with all the funding within the state and the city and all that stuff, less than 2% of that funding went to black-owned businesses. So I think you're right about one. It is the information piece, but I think there is still like some systematic barriers.
Oh, there's definitely systematic barriers
where it makes it hard for people. So I mean, what do you guys do at Rivermark to kind of overcome some of those and help black business owners?
Well, I think one of the biggest, distinctions that we do at Rivermark is we try to meet people where they are.
Okay.
Right? So we see them for who they are as an individual. We don't see them, based on color or what have you. Based on, so tell me your story. What's going on with you? What type of business do you have? What are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals? What are some of your challenges? Right? Taking a more of a holistic approach to be able to support them. And John, I think you could probably speak to this when we, created our strategic partnership. I came to you 2 years ago, and I said, hey, we're trying to help provide equitable access to capital for BIPOC and minority-owned small businesses. And one of the first things you said to me was, I've heard that before, right? So, are you just talking, or are you going to do something about it?
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, man, and what was kind of interesting was that you looked me in my face and said, "Send them to me."
Yeah, send them to me. Because like this, I'm not going to do something. I'm not going to say something that I can't do. So a couple things that we did to answer your question, Alex, is we also look at, from a conventional lending standpoint, the way the framework is. It's not conducive for BIPOC or marginalized community, small business. It's not. So, so I decided, along with the blessings from Rivermark, was say, hey, we need to make a paradigm shift on how we view credit underwriting to make sure it's equitable for all small businesses,
Okay.
and particularly, Black-owned businesses, to be able to support them. So we're looking at our underwriting criteria and made some tweaks to it to be able to open up the coffers to say we want to make sure we're able to say yes, more than saying no. Right.
Yeah, and maybe you could describe a little bit more. Earlier, you and I were talking about the was it the SLO lending program? You said we're saying state
loan guarantee. Yeah. So let me back up a little bit. So when you talk about some of the things that we're doing, we've created a special purpose credit program called the Diversity Small Business Lending Program. So what we do in conventional lending, usually the debt service is 1.25 to 1, as you know, as a banker.
And we can, if we could just explain that real quick, what that means, right? So, if it was a 1, that means all your money, all your income that you're making is going towards repaying that debt. If it's 1.25, that means a quarter plus of your income is going toward repaying that debt. So. You said you guys go lower than 1.25.
So we're going 0.5 to 1. So we had to do that based on previous experiences and having conversations with minority businesses, but also being a banker for so many years and having these conversations and working for institutions that stuck to the conventional line of thinking around underwriting. That would shut majority of Black-owned businesses out. So it was always a no, right? Or not right now. But then where does that leave them? Not knowing exactly what they need to do to be successful, to prepare themselves to have an opportunity. So we decided to change that and said, hey, we're not focusing so much on the credit score. We're focusing on what their story is, what's happening with them, taking a more holistic, comprehensive approach to looking at that. And I give you an example. One of the Black-owned business that we helped last year, they're looking for a working line of capital for about $20,000. So we looked, so they fill out the application. We also pulled their credit report, and we noticed on the credit report they had about $15,000 and charged off debt. Okay. Whether it be credit card or auto, whatever is charged off, and that's when, John, as you mentioned, that the thought process, the thinking process of how we view money, sometimes. They folks of color may look at it as, oh, the debt is charged off, I don't have to worry about it.
That's that trauma thinking, you know.
So that
who we gonna pay first?
Who you pay
who
first,
we gonna cheat?
Right? So one of the things, and that's where the education comes in and knowledge, right? So not knowing that, hey, there's a statute of limitation. They still have up to 10, 15 years to come back and get that money, right? And it doesn't hurt, and it doesn't help your credit. So we decided we had that conversation with this individual, and we said, hey, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you $15,000 in additional credit to pay that charge off.
Oh wow, okay.
Right, in addition to the $20,000, so now they got a total of $35,000 in actual credit.
And you're rebuilding the credit. Rebuilding
the credit, and also providing the working.
Y'all hear that?
Yeah. Wow.
Y'all hear that? Yeah, they taking a risk on you. You know what I mean? Because man, for us, Alex, one of the phenomena that have come out of this is that when we get that accelerated push, right? That push that everyone, you get a Floyd situation, any kind of Black momentum that you get in a society, the first thing we look at is how we're being treated, right, on some of those levels. But most importantly, how we're able to advance ourselves in the way we think about the money and how we're dealing with that. So a lot of times, like one of the similar clients, is one of them had gotten cancer, right, in the process. And and so we had to go and mitigate that without. But bankers, y'all know how y'all think. But the person they should all be conscious about everything except for the fact that they ain't conscious about not paying back a loan, because they figure, well, why should I pay back the loan if I'm about to die? But the bottom line is that there's an ethic, right, that we don't teach, right? So, and I'm a kind of a stickler for this stuff myself, is that if you're going to do something, do it right. understand how the standard works. No matter what has occurred to us, if you got a word, if you got ethic, if you give somebody your word, you sign a document, you sign a contract, you sign an agreement, is that when you give them your word, that you honor your word. And that's along with growing up, learning about money. That's just one of them elements that you got to have hand in glove with learning about capitalism, or you got to also learn about ethic. You got to also learn about, how to write an agreement and stick to an agreement, those kinds of things. Not look and think about who you're going to cheat today. But anyway, that was just my thoughts about that.
Well, I think for me, I feel like nowadays you're going to learn even harder, if you do have those type of habits, because everything's about data now. You know what I'm saying? So, and that's basically what your credit report is data on you, and they have so many different formulas for how they figure out if they're going to lend to you or not. But now they're starting to push that just outside of lending, right? If you want to get an apartment, if you're trying to do certain things, it all requires credit. They look at that. They look at your habits. So you do got to figure out how to get into a better place where you have better habits. Otherwise, they'll make you pay for that. But for that, so how do you guys measure if some of those lending activities have been successful?
Well, I think one of the easiest way is based on the number of applications that come in and the number that we approve. Right? So that's probably that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Because you can get a whole bunch of applications, but if you don't approve any, then you're not really successful, right? So I think that's probably the basic, I guess, way of measuring our success is how many individuals that come to us that we're able to say yes to, right? And be able to not only just say yes to, but also provide the knowledge and understanding to be able to manage that credit moving forward, and also be able to create sustainability with that piece so they can continue to grow.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, are you able to share some of those numbers or no? So, are you able to tell us how?
So we started this diversity small business lending program probably about a year ago, and roughly, I would say, we funded roughly about 42 loans for almost $1 million.
Wow!
And the average loan was roughly about $15,000.
And these are a mix of personal and business loans? Is that?
No, this is just solely just small business.
Small business, okay. All right.
And then out of those 42 loans that we approved, 100% were either BIPOC owned or women owned businesses.
Ooh. Wow, that's a number to be touted. Hey man, Jarrell, you sitting over there, you the youngest cat in the room, man. I mean, how you seeing business and banking and all that stuff? Man, you got a question for brother over here that from your age group, just coming out of college, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of college, the most, just for me, the thing that's on my mind the most is home ownership and stuff like that, and how to go about that. Because I watch all these videos and people have all different kinds of advice of okay, try to buy a duplex and live in one and then rent out the other or something like that. But something that's tricky for me is trying to figure out what are the the actual steps to do that and make that happen, and then the financial part of it, and getting the money for it, and then credit score, and then there's mortgage rates and all of that stuff. So
it's a lot, right?
Yeah,
it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I think one thing I would I guess first start with, you may want to. There's a lot of different community programs as far as home buyer workshops, right? And you get certified, and it helps by doing that, one, not only it empowers you, provides additional information around what are the steps that you need to take to be a homeowner, but also one of the benefits in some cases where they also offer some type of down payment assistance as well. So not only do you learn about how to manage your credit and what credit scores you need in order to be eligible to be the access to credit for homeownership, it also helps you with understanding the income that you need, right? Because it's one thing to say, hey, I want to buy a home, but if you're not making enough money to pay the mortgage payment, right, then it's for naught. Because there's a couple of different factors when you're looking at buying a home, right? So one is, do I have the right credit score, right? So you need to, generally probably need a credit score of at least 640 to 650 at minimum in order to get approved for a mortgage. And that goes on like for FHA loan where you only need about 3.5 to 5% down. That's a really good program that I think a government program that a lot of folks could take advantage of. And in some cases, those FHA programs also provide, ask you to go through a home buyer workshop seminar so you can get certified in order to go through that program to help support you. So that way you learn about credit, you learn about, do I have enough income, and what was the ideal mortgage payment that I need to have, less than 60% of your income goes towards, making the mortgage payment. So that way you have additional, outflow of cash to pay for your light bill, your car notes, and other, type of emergencies and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you have additional money on top of being able to pay the mortgage to have cash reserves in case of emergency. Right? So that's really, really important as well. So it's also important for you to be patient, right? Because everyone's like, I graduated college, I got this job making $70,000 a year, I'm ready, right? No, you're not ready. You need to be equipped with the knowledge and information so that way you know exactly, what type of home and what size home would be ideal for me to be able to afford and be able to stay in the home. Because I think the importance is, how do I stay in the home? So I want to buy a home that I'm able to stay in it, right? Because buying a home and just saying, oh, I'm a homeowner, but then you're struggling
to make the
payments, that's more stress than not having a home.
Oh boy, yeah, I'm trying to tell you, been there, done that.
Yeah, right.
We all, because they come a knocking at some point in time. So tell us, Alden, in light of the future, how moving forward, what are some of the future trends in lending to black business owners that our audience should be keeping an eye on?
Well, there's a lot of focus, state and local and federal around providing additional access or equitable access to capital, just based on a lot of things that are going on, with the George Floyd piece of it. There's a big insurgence of wokeness with folks in the infrastructure to provide more access to capital to minority small businesses. You think about here in Oregon, there's about 6,000 black businesses in the state of Oregon. How many of those individuals are getting the support that they need? So part of that, as we talked about when Senator Wyden came to the Soul District, there's one common theme that kept reiterating over and over is the lack of information, access to information.
Access
right?
to info.
So I think that's that one. Get the right information, and then we talk about. Then that way it prepares you to know exactly what you need to do to get ready to get access to the capital. And I think one of the things that you're doing is there's a big push on finding resources, whether it be grant funds or lending institutions that are willing to provide access to capital, equitable access to capital for minority small businesses.
Right, regardless of your race, creed, color.
So that's unfortunately it's a slow walk because not everyone is drinking the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah.
Right. But I can tell you, there are organizations out there that are drinking the Kool-Aid and are willing to provide access to capital for minority and black-owned businesses. Those are some of our community development financial institutions like CDFIs, some fintechs, and then also credit unions, which, bit of plug-in for Rivermark. We're providing access to capital. Let me rephrase that. We're providing equitable access to capital for minority and women-owned businesses not because from a guilt perspective, because it's the right thing to do. And I think one of the key pieces to that is, and this is where the challenge for a lot of financial institutions, in my opinion, there's a lack of cultural competency of understanding, the black businesses, their behaviors, their culture, right? That's important to understand because, like I said in the beginning, you need to meet them where they are, right?
Yeah.
You can't meet them where they are if you don't know who they are. And if you're not willing to understand who they are and take the time to understand their story and who they are and what they're trying to accomplish.
One size don't fit all.
Correct.
Yeah. That's some real pioneer kind of stuff you're talking about over there, Aben. So what you thinking about this, Alex? I mean, since you've been in banking, has banking come a little ways since then, or what, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely changed, and I think COVID definitely pushed it faster than it was. So there is a lot of change coming. So for people who are interested in some of your services, obviously they can go online. But are you guys pushing a little bit more on this side of the river? Are you planning on opening more branches on this side of the river? I know you said you just opened one up on 42nd and Sandy area. Mm-hmm. But do you have any plans to come on this side of it?
We're always looking for opportunities. Mm-hmm. It's all about timing and looking at opportunities in the real estate. Right, so it depends. We don't. Right now I don't have a crystal ball and say, hey, we're going to open up here. It's all about, because right now everything is focused on digital. Yeah. Right. So there's less, the traffic in actual physical brick and mortar branches is going down because everyone is using their phone. Right. So you can do a lot of banking through their phone. So one of the things, we're as a credit union, we're considered a digital first credit union. So we do a lot of things through mobile apps. So you can apply for a loan on your mobile app or online. One of the technological advances that we're focusing on now, and we're hopeful to have that up and implemented, is probably by Q3 or Q4 of this year, is do video banking. Okay. Right? And what I mean specifically about video banking, not just video, teller, but being able to get on through your phone or online, be able to sit down and talk to a video mortgage banker or a video business banker over the phone or through your phone or through the online. So that's another way. So that way we can meet you where you are. So that way you can bank anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that weren't comfortable with it or were kind of on edge with that, when COVID happened, we were forced to do everything from home. Yeah, it just sped everything up, especially in the banking world, and people started getting used to that. So and I definitely understand where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, so I do all my banking. I do probably like 99% of my banking on my mobile app.
Wow. So technology. And see, so how do you see that as hindering us, man, or helping us in a sense when you see the numbers? Not when you consider that most startup black businesses fail in the first 18 months. Okay, well, but I think that's also a national number. But when you consider the fact that there's still a large swath of the African American community and or BIPOC community that ain't even on digital realities. They just don't access, that whole digital life. How you guys bridging that divide?
Yeah. So I would respectfully disagree with that, because majority of folks of color have a mobile phone. Right. So we're probably I guess I would say the black community is probably more engaged in technology than probably some of our counterparts. It's just having an understanding of how to access that technology in the way to help support them and building wealth. And
okay, yeah, I can go with that one.
Knowledge base.
Yeah, I can go with that album, because I remember I was over at the high school one year when they were trying to sell technology to young black kids in the high school, and I went in and did a survey, and I asked, out of 25 young black kids that was in the room at the time, I asked how many of them have been, how many of them is knowledgeable and been exposed to technology, right? And only 2 of them raised their hand, while 20 of them was on their telephone. They was on telephone. But they didn't compare technology to their phone. It wasn't like the same thing,
Exactly. I can tell you personally, in my household, my 13-year-old daughter is our techie. Regardless, if anything that goes wrong with her phone or computer or whatever, or Apple Watch, she's able to go in there and make it happen. So, so I think we sometimes underestimate our ability to access technology and our knowledge of technology. I think it's just around access to capital. access to information, rather, to be able to support that in order to take it to the next level to get access to capital.
Yeah, well, I guess, but all the black in the black community, the people with the money, well, at least this is another way. The people with the money is over 50. You know, them youngsters ain't got no money, man. They may have technology, but they ain't got no money to transfer through that technology.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges nationally, is you're starting to see a lot of, millennials moving back home because it's tough out there, right? So they may be making $70,000 to $100,000, but I give you an example. In the state of California, in the Bay Area, low income is still $100,000.
Yeah.
That's still considered low income.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at a house, trying to buy a house, or even a condo, trying to buy a condo, and it's like 550 square feet, is well over $1 million.
Woo! That's in L.A.?
No, that's in San Francisco.
Oh, that's in San Francisco.
That's
I'm
crazy.
glad I run up out of there before it was time.
Right. So it's obviously economics is different in different parts of the country, but
Yes, sir.
but you still see a lot of millennials moving back home because they just can't afford to buy a house or even live on their own. You see a lot of folks living with roommates. Right. You may have 2-3 roommates in order to survive, because you can't afford an apartment, because even apartments are really expensive these days.
What we leaving on the table, Aben, that we haven't asked you, that we haven't talked about, but as a banker, and Alex as a banker, what did we miss anything that our listening base should know about banking that we hadn't covered in this conversation, folks?
I would say the thing I would want to leave you and the listeners with would be it's time. The time is now. Focus on the things that you can control. The access to information is there. We just need to make a decision to act on it. Get that. Be purposely intentional. And I always saying purposely intentional mean be purposeful about what is that you want to achieve, and then be intentional about acting and executing to it.
Wow. If you can see it, you could achieve it. Something like that. Well, right on, man. Aben, we appreciate you guys coming in with Rivermark and man, making that contribution to our community and our small black businesses, our BIPOC businesses. We encourage people to get out and reach out to Aben. Aben, how do people get a hold of you, man? And you give us a little bit of digits or online, whatever, people be able to contact the bank, or what do you suggest as a pathway for them to go to contact you in the bank?
Well, there's a couple of different ways, especially if you're here in the Portland area. I would say one area, especially for small businesses, I would say contact me through you, the Soul District, because you guys provide a lot of value as far as technical assistance to be able to support them, so that way they're ready to come and have a conversation with me, right? And then you can also contact me directly. You can send me an email. My email is ahill@rivermarkcu.org. So that's ahill@rivermarkcu.org to get a hold of me, or you can go into one of our 9 locations across Portland metro area, and then also we have a location in the Fruitvale area in Vancouver, Southwest Washington.
Right on. PDX Black Rose, y'all. It's all about small black businesses and BIPOC businesses. Hey, y'all, we appreciate y'all taking a minute out. Jamal, Alex, man, I'll tell you, this has been a real deep conversation. It's really important, though, that people get to understand is that we don't live in a socialist country, y'all. We live in a capitalist country, and it's important that we impart education and knowledge about the construct in which we exist in, because y'all have all heard the expression, ain't a damn thing funny in the land of milk and honey but money. So we had a real exciting guest here, and Alex, I don't know how you feel about the show today with who we got on, but you can definitely share a little bit more insight to them small black businesses that are out there about what the Soul District has got putting down around here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel really good about it, and I was glad that we had Aben on here to kind of share some of those. So I know one of the biggest things that people are looking for when they're asking us for assistance is access to funding, whether that's grants or lending. So for us to be able to kind of continue to grow our network and resources to be able to support our community, is always a blessing and a welcome. So I'm super excited about that. And again, outside of just the lending, contact Soul District or come by the office right here on 6607 MLK Drive. So
right on, y'all. So hey, Jamal, you got anything you want to share with our listener base on the way out about this money?
Well, first I want to say my name's Jarrell.
Well, I'm sorry, but here we go. Just that. But see, sometimes it's that sometimes. That's the thing that y'all keep talking about. It's like I got sometimes. Sometimes I remember some stuff, and sometimes I don't.
Sometimes.
Just be respectful of our elders here.
Yeah. That's all right. Y'all gonna cut this though, right now. But go ahead, Jarrell. Go ahead and tell us what you're thinking.
There's just one thing I wanted to share when we were talking about credit scores. It's like I remember when I was in college and I was like first learning about like what a credit card can actually do and how it can actually be valuable, because I was told like don't ever use a credit card because like you're gonna lose money, interest rates, blah blah blah. And then I went and like checked my credit score and it was like actually pretty high, and I was like, how is this possible? Like I've never had a credit card. And it turned out my mom had put my name on like some of her credit cards that like she barely used, and then like that was just building my credit score like over the years. And I just wanted to share that because I thought a lot of other people could do that, help their kids get like
And I started to cringe a little bit because sometimes it doesn't, baby. Sometimes it doesn't. It works the opposite. But I'm glad that it worked out the right way. For you.
Yeah, Mom was smart. At least she paid the bill.
But she used the one. She put my name on the one she like barely used, not the one that she just used frequently. Like had already like a high bill on it, nothing like that. So
smart move.
Yeah,
smart move. So
right on. So hey, y'all, this concludes our episode of PDX Black Rose. And again, folks, this is an important topic that we've shared with you today, and we'd hope that you pick this podcast up and listen to it a little bit, because our guests today definitely have some enlightening. And one of the things that I thought was really enlightening is that his form of looking at credit in small business and people is not just about your score. So hear that. I think that they're taking a revolutionary difference in how they're approaching this. They're looking at the person. They're looking at the total picture. And I think it's important. And then they're making some allowances and some considerations. And I think that that's also special, because we're not all cut from the same cloth. And so it's important that we have some tolerance and some forbearance and some forgiveness in this process. So we do appreciate the banking and their method of doing banking, and we appreciate y'all taking some time out to investigate this topic a little bit more. So, and then y'all stay tuned, because PDX Black Rose is going to keep coming back at y'all with these exciting topics to help you improve your lives in the small businesses that you operate. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.